My neighbor expected to use my driveway whenever he wanted, claiming I have more cars than you. When I asked him to stop, he blocked me in and laughed. What are you going to do about it? I had him towed and said, hope you enjoy the fine. I live in a quiet suburb in the Midwest. Our neighborhood is filled with modest homes, each with its own driveway and a small front yard. Most of us keep to ourselves, exchanging polite nods when collecting mail or mowing lawns. It's the kind of place where people value their space and privacy. A few months ago, a new neighbor moved in across the street. His name is Rick. Rick is in his late 40s, stocky build, always wearing a baseball cap, and has a collection of cars that seems excessive for a single household. From the moment he arrived, he started parking his vehicles all over the street, sometimes even partially on other people's lawns. At first, I didn't mind. Everyone deserves a bit of leeway when settling in. But soon, Rick began parking one of his cars in front of my driveway. Not just near it, but directly blocking it. The first time it happened, I thought it was a mistake. I walked over and knocked on his door. Hey, Rick, I said, trying to keep things friendly. Your car's blocking my driveway. Mind moving it? He looked at me, smirked, and said, I have more cars than you. Nowhere else to park. I was taken aback. I understand, but you can't block my driveway. I need to get to work. He chuckled. What are you going to do about it? I walked away, fuming. I decided to document everything. I took photos of his car blocking my driveway, noted the dates and times, and even installed a security camera facing the street. Over the next few weeks, Rick continued his antics. He'd park his cars in front of my driveway, sometimes leaving them there overnight. I tried talking to him again, but he just laughed it off. I contacted the local authorities, but they said unless the car was on my property, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested I put up a no parking sign and inform Rick in writing. I did just that. I put up a sign at the edge of my driveway and sent Rick a certified letter stating that any vehicle blocking my driveway would be towed at the owner's expense. The next day, Rick parked his car directly in front of my driveway again. I called a towing company. They arrived promptly and towed the car away. Rick was furious. He stormed over, yelling and threatening legal action. I calmly reminded him of the letter and the sign. He scoffed, "This isn't over." Over the next few weeks, Rick became more aggressive. He'd rev his engines late at night, shine his headlights into our windows, and even left a dead animal on our porch. I reported every incident to the police, but without concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. Determined to protect my family and our peace, I invested in better security cameras and motion sensor lights. I also joined the local neighborhood watch and shared my experiences. Support poured in. Other neighbors came forward with similar stories about Rick. Together, we compiled our evidence and presented it to the Homeowners Association. The HOA took swift action. Rick was fined for multiple violations, and a restraining order was filed against him for harassment. Eventually, Rick's antics caught up with him. He was forced to sell several of his cars to pay the fines and legal fees. The neighborhood slowly returned to its peaceful state. Through this ordeal, I learned the importance of standing up for oneself and the power of community. While I never sought conflict, I wasn't going to let someone bully me into submission. So, to anyone facing a similar situation, document everything, seek support, and remember that you have the right to peace in your own home. Rick didn't stop. Even after the HOA fines and the restraining order, he found new ways to push boundaries. For a while, he parked his cars legally, but he made sure to position them just inches from the end of my driveway. Technically, not blocking it, but tight enough that reversing out became a 20-point turn. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. But I logged everything, timestamped photos, video clips from the cameras, notes. I'd learned that silence sometimes speaks louder when you're stacking evidence. Then came the day someone keyed my car. Deep, ragged lines across the driver's side. It was a Saturday morning. I walked out with coffee in hand, saw the damage, and stood there for a long time, heart pounding. I hadn't parked on the street. The car was fully in my driveway. The cameras didn't catch anyone in the act. That night, it had rained hard, and visibility was poor. Whoever did it knew that. I filed a police report, not expecting much. It felt personal, though. Too precise to be random. I couldn't prove it was Rick, but it added fuel to a fire that had never gone out. Weeks passed. Things seemed to cool off. Rick kept to himself. His cars stayed in front of his own house. I started thinking maybe he'd burned himself out. Or maybe the fines and warnings finally got through to him. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I heard a loud bang outside. I ran to the window. One of Rick's old trucks had rolled into the middle of the street, blocking it entirely. No lights, no one inside. I pulled on a hoodie, grabbed my phone, and stepped outside. The truck was still running. The doors were locked. I looked over to Rick's house. No lights on. No movement. Just darkness. I called the non-emergency police line again. While I waited, Rick stepped outside, shirtless, scratching his head like he'd just woken up. "What's going on?" he asked like he hadn't heard the roaring engine in the dead quiet night. "Your truck's in the middle of the road," I said. He squinted, walked up to it, and gave me a smirk. Guess the handbrake slipped. The officer who showed up wasn't amused. They gave Rick a formal warning and said if it happened again, it would be considered reckless endangerment. The next day, Rick's tone changed. "You know you're making enemies, right?" he said across the street. "I'm protecting my space." "That's all," I replied. He gave a slow nod and went back inside. A few days later, my trash bins disappeared. Not blown over by wind, not knocked around by raccoons, gone. I had to drive around the block to find them dumped in a ditch near a construction site. Again, no cameras caught it, but I knew. Rick was playing games again. I started parking my car in the garage every night. I added another camera, this one angled low across the front yard, motion activated. I reinforced the back gate with a new lock. Then something weird happened. I got home from work one night, pulled into the driveway, and saw a large envelope taped to my front door. No name, just taped there, like it had been done in a hurry. I opened it inside. Photos. Of me. Dozens of them. Some taken from far away, others from across the street. Some were of me mowing the lawn, walking the dog, taking out the trash, even me sitting on my porch. There was no note. Just pictures. My hands were shaking. I checked the cameras. Nothing. Whoever left it had managed to avoid every angle. I called the police again, this time more urgently. They opened an investigation, said they'd increase patrols in the neighborhood, but unless someone physically threatened me or was caught in the act, it was hard to press charges. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up in the living room with the lights off, watching through the window. At 3:17 a.m., I saw a shadow move between my car and the neighbor's mailbox. I didn't blink. The figure paused, then crossed the street. Rick. He didn't come to my door. He just stood across the street, arms crossed, looking at my house. After a minute, he turned and walked back inside. The next morning, I made copies of the photos, filed another report, and handed a set to the HOA. They were shocked but said again, no threats, no action. Just keep your guard up. But something was changing. The energy around Rick wasn't just hostile now, it felt unstable. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever he was building up to hadn't even started yet. A week later, Rick's house went dark. No lights for 3 nights straight. No cars moved. Blinds shut tight. It was like he vanished. At first, I felt relief. Maybe he got evicted. Maybe the HOA or city finally had enough. But by day 4, the silence fell off. Rick was many things: loud, angry, invasive, but he was never quiet. On the 5th day, a new car showed up in Rick's driveway. Black SUV with out-of-state plates. Then another. People I'd never seen before. Two men in plain clothes, one wearing aviators, another with a thick folder in his hand. They went into Rick's house. No knocking. Just walked in with a key. I stayed on my porch, pretending to scroll my phone, but I was watching every move. They came out 20 minutes later with a locked box, folders, and what looked like a laptop bag. Then Rick came back. That night, he didn't look the same. His usual smirk was gone. His face looked pale, eyes sunken. Like he hadn't slept in days. He parked in his usual spot, looked up at my camera for a full second, then went inside. Around midnight, I heard a knock at my door. Not the loud kind, soft, like someone didn't want to be heard. I froze. Looked at the security feed. Nobody there. Then the camera glitched. For the first time since I installed it, the feed just blacked out for 2 full seconds. When it came back on, still no one in sight. I opened the door anyway, slowly. Just a single envelope on the mat. Inside was a flash drive. No note. I didn't plug it in. Instead, I took it straight to a buddy of mine who works IT at the local community college. We opened it on a secured system. Inside, video clips, hidden camera footage, my own house, angles that I didn't even have cameras on, footage from behind my back gate, from the alleyway, from the tree line across my yard, clips going back months. My hands went cold. Someone had been watching my family and me. Closely. Systematically. And not just me. There were folders on the flash drive, labeled with other neighbors' names. Clips of them in their yards, with their kids, coming and going from work. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was surveillance. Organized. I took the drive to the police. They were quiet for a long time, then asked where I got it. I told them. They didn't say much, but the next day, a black van parked at the end of the street. Then another. Rick didn't come home that night. Word started to spread around the neighborhood. Someone claimed to have seen Rick being taken out in handcuffs at dawn. Others said he left in the middle of the night, packed everything and drove off. But I had the cameras. And they didn't catch anything. That's when the real twist hit. 2 days after Rick disappeared, my doorbell rang at 7 a.m. It was one of the men from the black SUV. Clean cut, short-cropped hair, no smile. "We need to speak," he said. He flashed something quick, badge, ID. I didn't even catch the agency. He asked if we could talk inside. I didn't want to, but he stepped in before I could say no. "I can't tell you everything," he said, "but you need to be careful. Rick wasn't just a nuisance. He's connected to something bigger. You were a target because you pushed back. There are others watching now. Not just him." I asked what that meant. He didn't answer. He just looked toward the camera mounted on my porch and said, "Whatever you do, don't take them down. Keep recording. And if anything else shows up on your doorstep, don't open it." Then he left. I haven't seen him since. Rick's house is now under renovation. At least, that's what the notice says on the front door. But nobody's been in or out for weeks. Windows are still covered. Trash never put out. Lights never on. But sometimes, at night, the cameras pick up strange things. A light flickering in the back room. A shadow crossing behind the curtain. No face. No clear figure. And 2 nights ago, the camera at the alleyway caught someone standing at my back fence. Just standing. No motion. For 4 full minutes. Then gone. I tried calling the number the man left on a card. Disconnected. My neighbors have started to notice odd things too. Lights flickering. Mail tampered with. One guy says his internet has been cutting out every night at exactly 2:34 a.m. Something tells me Rick was just the start. A week later, my dog wouldn't stop barking. It was 3:12 a.m. I checked the cameras. Again, a glitch. 1 second of static, then back. Nothing unusual. But the dog never barked without reason. I stepped outside with a flashlight and a crowbar tucked behind my back. The yard was dead silent. No wind. No crickets. Nothing. Then I saw it. On the fence, spray painted in sloppy red, You looked too close. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear anything else. I took photos, wiped the paint off before my wife saw it, and tried to act like everything was normal the next morning. But it wasn't. That same day, the black SUV came back. Only this time, it was parked across the street with the windows down. Empty. I went outside to confront whoever left it there. It was still running. Inside the passenger seat, in plain sight, was another envelope. My name on it. Inside, a photo of me from years ago, college, I think. On the back, it said in sloppy handwriting, "Everyone has dirt." I knew I hadn't done anything serious. Nothing criminal. But I started to question everything. Had I ever crossed a line? Pushed too hard? Said too much? That's when I remembered. Years ago, I'd been part of a college group that exposed a shady data broker selling people's private information. We thought we were heroes. We even got some minor media attention. But we didn't know who we pissed off. Was Rick connected to that? Was I part of a list? It clicked then. Rick wasn't just some petty neighbor with too many cars. He was part of something bigger. Watching, logging, testing limits. And I had escalated it. It all came to a head one night, 2 weeks later. I got home late. My wife and kid were visiting her sister in another state. I pulled into the garage, door closed behind me. As I stepped out of the car, all the lights in the house shut off at once. Then the garage door started to open again. On its own. I bolted for the control panel, dead. I grabbed my phone, no signal. And then I saw movement outside. 3 people. Masks. Black clothing. One had what looked like a long metal rod. They didn't rush in. They just stood at the edge of my driveway, watching. I grabbed the crowbar and waited. Then the lights flickered back on. Every floodlight. Every motion sensor. Every camera. They turned and ran. I didn't chase them. I didn't call the cops. Instead, I grabbed the hard drives from the cameras, packed a go bag, and drove straight to a friend's cabin 4 hours away in Wisconsin. Stayed off-grid for a week. When I came back, Rick's house was on fire. It burned down in the middle of the night. The fire department couldn't say what started it. Electrical, maybe. No evidence of anyone inside. The renovation crew, if there ever was one, was gone. No forwarding address. No history of permits. It was like the house never legally existed. The HOA sent out a notice asking if anyone had seen suspicious activity. I didn't respond. But that night, I received a final envelope. In my mailbox. No stamp. Inside, a single note. Sometimes, justice needs help. You gave it just enough. You're done. Don't look again. That was a year ago. I moved. Sold the house at a loss. We live far from there now, in a place with no neighbors across the street. But I still keep cameras up. And I never, ever ignore strange cars parked too close.